What's happening, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to this video. It's been a long time since I've done any kind of top 10 list on this channel, and I thought to myself, let's do not just a top 10 prospect list, but let's actually talk about the top 10 best draft picks that Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes have made, along with the Montreal Canadiens scouts. Let's give them some credit too. And let's talk about who are the best picks that they've made in the last 4 drafts. They've had 4 cracks at it here in the NHL entry draft the last 4 years since Hughes and Gorton have taken over HuGo. So let's talk about these players, their current roster players on this list. There's prospects on this list. So let's just talk about the best picks that they've made. And maybe my first overall pick or first best pick from this list that they've made will surprise you. Maybe it won't, but it might not be who you think. So let's find out. But let's not waste any further time. Let's dive right into it. The top 10 picks of the Hughes and Gorton era so far. Starting at number 10, we have Mr. Owen Beck, ladies and gentlemen, who was selected. Let's see here. In the second round, I knew that. I knew this answer. Owen Beck was selected in the second round, 33rd overall in the 2022 NHL entry draft. And at the time he was selected, he was the best in the OHL for faceoffs. So we all know that the Canadiens could use some help in the faceoff circle in the future. And where does Owen Beck slot in? I mean, we know it's certainly going to be a battle for a center position in the coming seasons, but if he can put it together, and it seems like so far at each and every level in junior, in the World Juniors, you know, in the AHL with Laval, Owen Beck has been able to produce and put it together. He hasn't put it up at the NHL level just yet. He's only got just over 10 games played, but the future, it could potentially be bright for Owen Beck, and we're just going to keep on rolling to the next one. All right, so in at number 9, we have Alexander Zarovski, who was just selected 34th overall in the 2025 NHL entry draft, and some picks were traded around to acquire him for the Canadiens to move up in the draft and select Zarovski, because we know that there were lists that actually had Zarovski projected to go within the top 20 in the 25 NHL entry draft. This guy has a lot of high potential offensive upside and potentially one of the best, well, not potentially, he's got one of the best pair of hands in the draft. And there's a lot of upside, but there's a lot of room to work on him. And obviously he's got to fill out. As we know, he's not the biggest guy, but there is a lot of excitement around him. He actually grew up with Ivan Demdov as well. So, you know, Demi's going to fall somewhere in this list. But the point being, these two fellas here from Russia, Zarovski and Demdov, these guys are going to make a big impact on the Canadiens' offense and in their top 9 going forward. I'll say 9 because I don't know where Zarovski's going to land should he make the Canadiens and coming in the coming seasons. But there's a lot of high offensive upside from him. He's a striker, if you will. If you want to think of it in soccer terms, this guy can put up points. He can score. He can make some moves, and he's going to be an exciting player to watch. Coming in at number 8, ladies and gentlemen, is Little John Mooney, also selected this year in the 2025 NHL entry draft. Mooney was selected in the 4th round, 113th overall. This guy has drawn comparisons to Cole Caulfield, given his size. And in terms of the way he plays, there's been even some comparisons, if you will, in terms of the hunger that he has to Brendan Gallagher of the Montreal Canadiens. This guy is little, but he does not play little, aka Little John Mooney does not, I mean, the pun is too easy. But a lot of fans were pretty excited to see this player at Habs development camp just a few short weeks ago. And the ceiling for this guy, I don't know what that is exactly, but I do think that with Gallagher and Anderson's contracts expiring in the next 2 seasons, after 2 more seasons, you know, if he works his way up, we could see him in the World Juniors as soon as this year also. This guy has a lot of people excited about his offensive ability and his ability also, because he's small, to be elusive and not to get, as they say, blown up by hits. And the size factor for these players that have been this size has been a factor all their lives, as we know. But there's a lot of hope for this player. Let's just say that. Let's keep going right into number 7, Adam Angstrom, defenseman Adam Angstrom, who right now is making a good impression with the Laval Rocket in the AHL. And I think a lot of people are starting to sense that he has the potential to be an NHL player in the coming seasons. And not every pick that the Canadiens make that's not going to be the case. Not every player is going to make it to the NHL. But Adam Angstrom has impressed. And I'm telling you right now, after seeing him last year in the Prospects Challenge, sometimes you get just a quick impression of a player. And when he was carrying the puck up the ice, the way I saw him skate, the smooth skating, reminds you of Mike Matheson's skating style a bit. And I think I saw something there personally when I watched Adam Angstrom up close, and hopefully get to see him again this year in the Prospects Challenge as well. But Angstrom was selected in the third round, 92nd overall, also in the 2022 NHL entry draft, which I got to say, the first draft for the Hughes and Gorton era was, as the kids say these days, a banger. It was a great draft because there's a lot of players on this list from the 2022 NHL entry draft, Adam Angstrom being among them as a later pick in the third round, 92nd overall, a guy that could very well make the third pairing of the Montreal Canadiens in the coming seasons. All right, rolling right along to number 6, and that is Jacob Fowler, folks, because this gentleman here has already signed his entry-level contract with the Montreal Canadiens and found himself playing in Laval's playoff run last season. And we'll see himself likely leading the way as the top goaltender for Laval this coming season also. We could see him get a call-up at some point to the Canadiens as early as this season. It's certainly a possibility, but it could be him and Jakub Dobeš or Fowler and Capo Kakinen, owning the crease in Laval for the Rocket this season. So we'll see where the chips fall, but we do expect that Jacob Fowler will start with the Laval Rocket this season. And this is a guy who, when he got drafted, he was bummed out that he didn't get picked, in junior. I mean, he got passed over multiple times by multiple different leagues. And this is a guy who, you want to talk about compete, and how the Canadiens are continuously addressing the fact that when they want to draft players, compete is one of the highest traits that they are looking for in a hockey player. And this goaltender, Jacob Fowler, is the heir apparent, a lot of people say lately, to Carey Price, the next best one, that high of a ceiling of a goaltender. Is he going to be as good as Carey? I don't think it's fair to project that right now. Carey's going to be a Hall of Famer very soon. But Jacob Fowler is a competitor. He's got a lot of different stylistic. There's been Marty Brodeur comparisons from Pierre Maguire. There's a couple other styles that he kind of emanates as a goaltender. But either way, Jacob Fowler is on this list for good reason, and pretty good value in the third round at 69th overall. Continuing to number 5, a very special player who, as you can see in this picture here, this is an homage to and an honor to his late father, Michael Hage, selected 21st overall in the 2024 NHL entry draft, a centerman who has compared himself to the likes of Jack Eichel in terms of the way he thinks about himself and who he tries to look up to in terms of the kind of player he wants to be. Right-handed shot centerman Michael Hage, smooth also. Again, that word comes to mind when describing his way of playing. And again, just a shout out to Michael's family. It was a beautiful moment seeing him get drafted. He was so wanting to get drafted by his parents, especially his dad's favorite childhood team, the Montreal Canadiens, and it happened. And now Michael Hage might represent Canada also at the World Juniors, as he's been invited to the Summer Showcase. So I'd like to have him as high as possible on this list, just given the belief that I have in Michael Hage. The Canadiens also traded up 3 picks in the 2024 NHL entry draft to get Michael Hage at 21st overall. They targeted him, they wanted him, and he wanted to be there too. So my gosh, is this ever a match made in heaven between Michael Hage and the Montreal Canadiens? It's a special player, a special connection, and I think that he could be the second center of the future for the Montreal Canadiens, as a lot of us fans and even media expect him to be. Right next on the list, at number 4, folks, is David Rybacker, selected 5th overall in the 2023 NHL entry draft. Even though a lot of us wanted a forward, including myself, the Canadiens had other plans, and David Rybacker was the pick. Carey Price, unfortunately, stumbled his name. We know, we forgive Carey for that. It kind of made for a funny viral moment, but in the end, the Canadiens selected a player that a lot of us didn't think that they should. And this is a guy who is steady and poised. I saw him again in the Prospect Challenge in Buffalo when he was selected. And I got to tell you that he looked like one of the least nervous players on the ice out there. And this is just within the first few months of him being drafted to the Canadiens. But David Rybacker has had some early injury issues, as soon as recent as this past season. But we all expect great things out of him. To become a top 4 pairing defenseman in the NHL, we could see him on the first pair as well. The ceiling is, I mean, the sky's kind of the limit in a sense for him in terms of whether he could be on the first or second pair. I don't think he's going to be a bottom pairing guy, but David Rybacker is a steady, poised, physical defenseman who his physical game will develop more with time, I do believe. I've seen the feistiness from him. I've seen it. I've seen little bits of it. I've also seen some better offensive upside from him too. So there's a lot to be had from him. Is he going to be Lane Hutson's perfect or permanent partner down the road in terms of offensive and defensive pairing defenseman? I think they can bring a bit of both. More so Rybacker on the defensive side, but I think both guys have offensive upside, especially Lane Hudson. No kidding. But David Rybacker, a lot of high expectations for him. At third on this list, ladies and gentlemen, Urai Slavkovski, who was picked first overall. There was no greater intrigue in Canadiens draft history than when the Canadiens had the first overall pick in 2022 and went with Urai Slavkovski over you know who. Let's just say that. He was picked first when a lot of fans, including myself, didn't think that he was the guy. And how wrong some of us might be, we don't know still. It's only been a few years for Slav. He's entering his 4th season in the NHL already. He came into the NHL right away at 18. Most first overall picks do. It's like 95+% of first overall picks. I think it's somewhere in there, 95%. Start in the NHL right away. And Slavkovski has impressed, but we know there's a lot more that can be coming from him. We expect it from him, and I think he expects it from himself. We saw how emotional he was in this last playoff run. I think that we are starting to slowly get into the phase of Slavkovski the boy and Slavkovski the man is going to be developing in terms of just, this guy's 21 years old. He's still young. He's still a kid. So we got to remember that too. A lot of expectations from our first overall pick, but we got a lot of belief in Slav. All right, so number 2. This one might surprise you guys, but it's Ivan Demdov. What do you mean, Deeks? What do you mean number 2? What are you trying to say here? Okay, there's logic, there's reason specifically to my top 2 here in this top 10 list. It's not about necessarily in this list that I created here, the top 10 players based specifically on their highest ceiling. That's not exactly how I made this list. I made this list partially in mind having, how do I describe it? Basically, how I can simplify it for you guys is this top 10 list also comes down to value in where these players were selected in the draft. Ivan Demdov was not a difficult selection at 5th overall for the Montreal Canadiens. This was an easy pick to make. Even if the Canadiens didn't show their hand and how much interest they actually had in him, this was an easy pick to make at 5th overall in the 2024 NHL entry draft. The fact that he was still available and landed in the Canadiens' lap at 5th was amazing and a bit of a miracle. And I still can't believe we got him. That's still how I feel about this player. This guy's going to be the best Montreal Canadien, probably potentially, for a long, long time. And that's why I have a reason for the reason why I ordered my list the way I did in terms of who's first overall in this list of the top 10 best picks from the Hughes and Gorton era. And the reason I did it, I'll tell you. Here he is, Lane Hudson at number 1. Why would you have Hudson over Demdov? Well, these two players are very similar. We even heard Kent Hughes talking and interviewing Ivan Demdov, comparing him to Lane Hudson. So why do I have Lane first over Ivan? And maybe anybody else in this list? It's because they got Lane Hudson in the 2nd round, 62nd overall. And we've seen in just one season what Lane Hudson can do. So the fact that the Canadiens were able to select Urai Slavkovski, Philip Machar, he's going to be talked about for a brief second later, Urai Slavkovski, Machar, Owen Beck, Lane Hudson, Adam Angstrom, just to name some of the players from the 2022 NHL entry draft list, Adam Angstrom being on that list also. The fact that Lane Hudson went 62nd in this draft was the closest to robbery I think you can get. So that's why I have him ranked first in this top 10 list of the best picks that Hughes and Gorton have made in this era so far for the Montreal Canadiens. Okay? I hope my rationale makes some sense. Maybe it doesn't. You can tear it apart all you want. But I want to get quickly now to honorable mentions in this list, guys. This was a tough list to make, but there are honorable mentions in this list, but those I think were the best picks for different reasons. But honorable mentions, Florian Xhekaj. I'm not going to go through a big description of each of these players and why they're on this list, but I'm just going to name them on this list, and then you can tell me your thoughts afterwards. Bogdan Konushkov. I hope I said that name right, by the way. Tyler Thorpe. Okay. Atos Koivu. Owen Protz. Hayden Papanikis. Bryce Pickford. Arseny Radkov. He's a goaltender, in case anyone of you guys don't know. Jared Davidson. All right, so these are the honorable mentions in this list of the 4 drafts that Hughes and Gorton have had the opportunity to select from. And I have a question mark around Machar because after this last draft and getting guys like LJ Mooney, Zarovski, just to name a couple, I just don't know what the future looks like now with Philip Machar and the Montreal Canadiens. I find it more and more difficult to find a roster spot for him on the Canadiens going forward, even though some of you know I've been a big Philip Machar fan. He's going to play in Laval this year, and then I believe his contract is up, and I just don't know what the future holds for him. I think it's going to be difficult for him to find a spot on the Canadiens roster going forward. I said it. I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. So there you have it. All right, guys. Well, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing it. I hope you enjoyed going through it. I'd love to hear what you guys think of this list down below. So please drop a comment down below. Hit like on the video. Hit subscribe to join the channel here. It would mean a lot to me, of course. And if you really want to, you can become part of the Deke Squad. That started just about a year and a half ago. You can support the channel for as low as $3 a month and become a member. There will be perks added this coming season. So in the meantime, thank you for any and all support that you give to this channel, whether it's a like, a subscribe, watching, your time. Can we thank you for your time to watch these videos? So I thank you all for that. I hope you enjoyed this top 10 list. Can't wait to hear what you all think of it. So see you soon, guys. Love y'all. Bless y'all. Talk soon.